Call to order the joint planning session, Blythewood Town Council special call meeting in conjunction with the regular planning commission meeting for the month of May. Today is Monday, May 2nd. The time is now 6:01 p.m. Ms. Cowan, please conduct roll call of the Town Council.
Mayor Franklin.
I'm here.
Councilman Bowman.
Present.
Councilman Brock.
Here.
Councilman McHenry.
Here.
Councilman Griffin will not be with us tonight. He sent a note previously. And welcome you all to the audience and those of you watching from home. Ms. Cowan, please continue with the roll call of the Planning Commission.
Malcolm Gorge. Ed Kessler. Erica Page. Marcus Taylor. Here. Ken Coleman.
Here.
Jamal Mosley.
Here.
And Marty Wells.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Commissioners, for being here tonight as well. Ms. Cowan, was the notification and posting of this meeting agenda completed in accordance with state law? Thank you, ma'am. Town Council members, before you is tonight's agenda. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve is presented. Second.
Probably motion seconded to approve tonight's agenda as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. The agenda is approved. In the absence of Councilman Griffin, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation tonight. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight in prayer with your divine wisdom and guidance that lead us in the direction that the people of Blythewood want to be led and achieve the vision that you set for us. Lord, we ask that you be with all service members and first responders as they stand watch tonight and allow free citizens to convene together and do business in their governments. Lord, we ask you be with the sick and healing, that you put a hand of blessing and hope for them to get better and join us in future endeavors. We ask all these things in your Son's name, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Please be seated. Thank you. We begin tonight, part two, with a proclamation, Municipal Clerks Week. It's always good as a mayor to be able to recognize the contributions of citizens, friends, neighbors, and outstanding contributors to the town of Blythewood. And so today is the 53rd Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week from May 1st through May 7th of 2022. Whereas the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful in their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. Whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk. Now, therefore, I, Brian S. Franklin, Mayor of the town of Blythewood, do recognize the week of May 1st through May 7th, 2022, as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerk, Ms. Melissa Cowan, and to all professional municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. In witness thereof, as hereunto set my hand and cause to be affixed, the official seal of the town of Blythewood on this day, the second day of May, in the year of our Lord, 2022. Congratulations, Ms. Cowan. We appreciate all your efforts and all your hard work. Thank you, ma'am. Moving to part three tonight, a presentation and discussion by the Urban Land Institute panel for the Richland County Technical Assistance Report, Mr. Jeff Rubel of Richland County Economic Development, and Mr. Steve Dudash of the ULI panel. Mr. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In 2021, Richland County Economic Development Office hired the Urban Land Institute, ULI, to assist them with developing a plan for the commercial portion of the Blythewood Industrial Park. ULI convened a team of professionals to visit Blythewood in June of last year and included many stakeholders of the town to assist them in coming up with some recommendations. They completed the report a few months ago, but our schedules didn't all line up until now for them to come present their findings in person. Now I'll turn it over to Jeff Rubel, the Director of the Richland County Economic Development Office, to start off the presentation and introduce the ULI panel representative, Steve Dudash.
Mr. Rubel, good to see you again, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, council members. Thank you, commission members, for allowing us to present today. And I apologize for the delay. It seemed like it was scheduling and pandemic and everything else, but we've had a little bit of a delay between the time of the report and now. Just as background, I think most of you know, Richland County closed on this property in November of 2019. The intent was to preserve property for potential industrial use so that we could grow the tax base and create quality jobs. And up and down that I-77 corridor, we had seen industrial site after industrial site get converted to residential and commercial. So we almost did it out of defense. We just said, hey, we need to lock this property up and give ourselves an opportunity to grow the way we want to grow. Part of that acquisition was picking up some commercial property, and we committed to the council that we would work collaboratively to come up with a plan on how that might be developed. We searched different avenues and finally settled on ULI. They had this unique program where they would come in and get everybody's feedback and come up with a plan. As Mr. Williamson just mentioned, we went through that process. With the chair of that committee is Steve Dudash, who's with us today. Mr. Dudash has been at this 35 years in real estate development as a consultant for architectural engineering, landscape architecture. He now works for the Navy, for the Charleston Naval Yard. I guess suffice it to say, he's what we would call an expert. He's a seasoned veteran, and there's a logical reason that he chaired this committee. So, without further discussion, I'd turn it over to Mr. Dudash. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of the Commission and the Council. It's great to be back after a year. We were excited before when we left. I was telling the Mayor earlier that we had a 90-day sort of plan, and that was a year ago. So hopefully we'll get back here and get started on it. I am Steve Dudash. I'm the chair. I work with Matt Brady, who is out of Goose Creek Economic Development, Chris Frazier, who is a real estate broker in Charleston and all across South Carolina. Alex Powell's up in Spartanburg, and Jessica Rossi. She works with Kimberly Horn. She's an expert in demographics and those sorts of things. The data sort of input that we had. So we had a great time, and we are. The Urban Land Institute is about quality land use. The mission there is to make sure that we're doing the right thing as we grow. We all know that we need to grow, but how do we grow? And the quality land use is part of the mission of the ULI. We worked with Amy Barrett, who was with us last year, but I have Robin Hargett, who's the director of ULI South Carolina. She's taken over that role now, and she's here with us too. So the TAP is the Technical Advisory Panel. It's a non-paid volunteer sort of grouping thing that we did. We were here for 2 days. Some are shorter, some are longer. I've done several all across South Carolina, in Bamberg and Johnsonville and other little towns as well, trying to help those towns in their long-range vision and strategy. Is really what it is, and how we can promote what the folks in those towns and cities, what they want, and then how we can help them with that in their, sort of like I said, the 90 days. So I thought the mayor, we heard some good things today. Actually, in your prayer, you said professional and vision. I like both of those things. And what we found last year when we were all together, when we had so many people come here, was the level of care in Blythewood all across here was amazing. It was amazing to see. We were here for 2 days. I can't remember if everybody was here and participated with that, but we were here for 2 days getting all kind of input and taking notes and putting it all together and then figuring out our strategy. So this is sort of the presentation that culminated with all of that. We've got other things here as well, but I'll go through all of this and then answer some questions. And we have our 7 steps, like I said, that we're supposed to be for the next 90 days, and we'll see where we go from here. How's that? Go to the next slide, please. I thought I had that. So it's a major process, like I talked about, and the best part of that process is you've got professionals like us and the others who are here, but we're really listening to the community and trying to get as much data as we can from the community and much input as we can from the community, finding out what the community wants, and then try to figure out how we can synthesize that into some long-range strategy. So what we heard, we'll talk about all of that and then talk about those next steps as well, like I said. Here we go. This is the mission of the ULI, and you can see is to shape the future of the built environment for transformative impact in the communities worldwide. South Carolina ULI is about 720 members, Robin, I think is what it is. Here in South Carolina, it's a global organization of 46,000 folks all across the world, but there's about 700 in South Carolina. We're trying to work on that and grow that as well. But the organization is sensitive to these issues like we're going to be talking about. So I think it was the right one to help the town of Blythewood with that. You can see what I was just talking about. That process is a 2 to 3 day effort with all the input that we have, and then coming up with the report that we have. We tried to formulate some questions as we came in. I think we had all these questions up for anybody who participated to begin and answer those questions. But how can Richland County Economic Development Department and the town work together to ensure that this highly visible property complements both the industrial park and the surrounding uses and is contributing to the community. There is market research. I was telling you that Jessica, she worked a lot on that. So how do we take that data and work on the synthesis of the plan? What are the uses? What are the right uses? How can we, our interest was in trying to really create a place that is mixed, walkable, that is connected to this area as well. So one of the recommendations the first recommendation that we came up with is how to connect over there and initiate that connection from here across the bridge over to the property on the other side. What are the key locations, attributes, and demographic factors and other assets, right, that are associated here that we should capitalize on that will help in the success of the town center, as we're calling it? And what are those challenges? We obviously need to recognize those. Time is one of those two, obviously. And then the recommendations coming up for the next steps for the county. So we're mainly, as Jeff was talking about, this is that area of the industrial park here. Sorry, I got to point to one of them, I guess. And this is about the 100 acres that we're sort of focused in on. And here, there's roughly 73 on this side of this road, and about 27 on this side of the road there as well. So our focus was on that. And how do we connect that? How do we create a place? How do we make it a viable, functioning, walkable place for everybody in Richland County as well as the town of Blythewood? Let's see here. The zoning on it is part of it. So the 20. I'll go back just to make sure we're aware of this right here is in the county, but I think the zoning on it's different. And the rest of it's under the town center zoning. So a lot of things that we heard over those 2 days. Like I said, there was a lot of care. People really care about this community, which they should. It is special in South Carolina. I've been around, like I told you. It is special. The protection of that rural charm and be proactive in the community, that community pride, like I was just talking about. A lot of people recognize that growth is coming. Let's be proactive in it. Let's figure out how we can manage it effectively and be smart with it and do that. Some specifics. One was the need for more dining options, and then housing nearby, workforce housing, recreation, sporting events, and a sports venue. There was discussion of a major sports venue coming, as well as the safety of the area and the safety of this place. Connection to the green space and the environment, the walkability, as I was talking about, the care of the materials, the quality of the design, the quality of the control of the place as it relates to the value of the surrounding region, the coordination in the regional effort, the high level of communication between everybody listening, like we were talking about, smart streets, having smart streets that help in the connection of everybody, and then planning for families and children. You're not going to be able to see all of this data and everything, but it's a lot of economic data that we were looking at as far as the retail, what retail components, office components, other land uses, what were those drivers for us, how could we utilize that information and the input for what we were doing in our plan. So you'll see on here those various uses and how sort of the per capita income, the net worth of the region, the folks in the region. These are all some of the data that we had and used in our plans as well. So in fairness, like I said, this was a year ago. A lot of things have changed in a year. Certainly the pandemic has affected a lot of things. Supply chain has affected a lot of things. So even some of the recommendations that we're making today need to be adjusted, re-looked at and adjusted, I would dare say. So we'll keep that in mind. And you can see some of the pre-pandemic, let's see, the conditions were threatening to get worse, but that was then. Despite a decade of sustained economic growth, vacancies were rising in the retail, a lot of retail things. With reduced incomes, there were many retailers not paying their full rent. So, of course, a lot of this was pre-COVID, so that was the effect of this. And as we know, a lot of people know that real estate in general has really elevated. It has all over the country because of supply and demand that's been driving up prices on real estate, which has made a lot of housing not attainable. So there might be an adjustment that needs to be made on that. We're focusing on that on a lot of other areas as well, trying to get attainable housing for the workforce. We do have that as one of the recommendations, I believe, here later on as well. So this is a little graph. You can see what's been happening as it relates to the community centers and lifestyle centers and urban centers, this going right up to when we were making our report and what was happening on those. The excellent areas are going through there. As you can see, it's getting higher, but these sort of dense walkable mixed-use nodes is really where a lot of the market data was saying that we should be going, which is exactly what we've been promoting and we're talking about over here on the 100 acres. Retail was slipping a little bit, as we know back then. It's still suffering, as probably all are aware, but it's still a shift with Amazon and online retailing. There's still a shift, but people like to get out. People like to see each other. People like to socialize. They like to bump into each other. So, how we manage that, whether it's just a little bit of retail and how you start off and how you phase that in a place like this is going to be really important, but it can be done. And I just got back from San Diego, our national conference for ULI. A lot of people were talking about exactly what we're talking about on this 100 acres. And the fact that it's sort of small is a really good thing because you can concentrate. Right? You can concentrate these things together, which is what a lot of people want. This was getting in at the time to the vacancy rates and the job growth and those numbers. So this probably, like I said, this is last year. We need to adjust these, look at these again. A lot of those things have changed, as we know. The trade area, which is where folks were going to and sort of driving to go out and shop. and do the things that they were doing. That shows you the trade area with Blythewood. This is the property right here, and here's the property that we're focusing on. This is the industrial area, and here's the main property that we're focusing on there. So that shows you that folks are, the opportunity to have something located in this, right in this locus is really high. So we're doing that. Let's see. Office, we all know what happened with office in COVID. There's a big debate on whether people are going to get back or not. I think it's going to be 50-50 myself, of sort of a hybrid of in the office and out of office, work from home, come to the office. We all have now it's sort of technology has allowed with Zoom and others allowed us to connect globally, really, but all offices can start connecting too. So you don't need to be in the office all the time, and maybe you don't want to, but you also want to get into the office so you can bump in at the water cooler and have a discussion on things. So with the healthiest things, so you got great options. So this was sort of before, what we were doing was before all this, so this needs to be re-looked at as well, I believe. This gets into some of that graph, but I think, again, it needs to be looked at again. And the office, the context of the growth and that of the office. These are those rates at the time. We need to get into all these percentages and everything. I think they need to be adjusted, but the fact is this is the process. These are the things that were measured. These are the things that need to be remeasured to go forward. We finally came up with a sort of a concept plan, this being the sort of the 100 acres right in here, like we were talking about, is showing this, the whole industrial area is all down below. Here's Blythewood Road. We're over here, of course, about right here, I guess, sitting in there, but this is, coming through there, and that's the property there. So we sort of designated these areas. One of the drivers at the time we were talking about was a recreational component, a large recreation, sort of a regional recreational component, which we were locating in this area over in here. This were the best road connections to connect to in here. And we were thinking that with retail, there would be opportunity for hotels, commercial, walkable, not much retail, fair amount of residential there, and then we also have an area of flex space, which is at 23 acres. It's over here on the east side of the road there that is flexible. So depending on the market, and if the market said, hey, we need more industrial, we could push the industrial up in there, but if it need more residential, maybe that's what comes over there. Even if it's more recreational, it could be that as well. So we were calling for it flex space. To be honest with you, I like to have all of it sort of in flex. I am a proponent of just having great streets and bones and structure, and then you sort of let the market come to you as it really wants to, and that can still happen here as well. These don't have to be, exactly. A lot of this can be adjustable as well. These are some vision images that we put together for the recreation. This one is much larger than the area that we have, but the vision for something great like that, as active as those are. I've been here, of course, and I've been here to the cannery out in California as well. Very active economic generators for those areas as relates to sports plays, lacrosse, soccer, those sorts of things, and with all the hotels and restaurants and food and dining that are associated with that. Great economic generators there. We also were looking at so this is a project I've been working on at Volvo down in Charleston area, and a village that's associated with Volvo. Even in that industrial park, something very similar to this. It's a much bigger an area than what we were talking about here, but same sort of situation where you have a walkable place. There's going to be, they've just signed up. It's going to be sort of like the Daniel Island Refuel. It's a walkable, a really cool urban service station, so that the building is up on the street. It's brick. They have a restaurant right out on the edge of the road. It's all walkable. The gas pumps and everything are in the rear. You can't see them for the most part. And that's one of the first things that's going to happen there. And they paid a really nice price for it as well. So they see the opportunity just like we were seeing it. So those opportunities are out there for everybody. We did have our action plan for the next 90 days. Like I said, we have a long-range vision. You know, that plan, concept plan is a long-range vision, but for the next 90 days, I was pressing to see what we could be doing then. I'm sorry we hadn't been able to follow up really on that, but we'll see where it goes from here. And this is really for y'all to be working on. But the plan was to figure out connect this pedestrian and bike path from here to that property and see what we could do. I think DOT was here at that time, weren't they, Carol? I think they responded really well to at least the initiative and the idea of making those connections. So I think that's one place to start. Assess those recreational needs in that large sports complex and see if there's really make a really thorough economic analysis on that and see what the real impact would be on that. We felt good about it at the time last year, but somebody needs to do that as well. The funding tools, you know, we looked at the TIF, we talked about the MID, we talked about a multi-county industrial park too as ways to fund a lot of these of the public improvements and a lot of the improvements that are there that we can utilize for the private side. So you've got some sort of public-private partnership that would be happening there as well. Develop the messaging and identity for the industrial park. That would be mainly on Jeff and his group, I know, but that tie and link to our little town village that's over there is really important if we're going to be communicating and doing everything together. So that messaging is really important. That design code that I was talking about earlier is the quality of the materials, quality of the place, quality of the streets, how people are engaged with the buildings, how they walk. All those things are detail sort of things, but they make a big difference. Those details can make a really big difference. So that's what that's talking about the code and the further design and planning. And then finally, craft a RFP that would engage a brokerage firm who could sort of lead that effort with you and your public-private partnership to take things forward and to work on the detailed development of all that. So that's sort of it in a broad nutshell. Like I said, it's been a long time. A lot of things I'm sure are different now. If we were doing this today, we might be asking the same questions, but I know we'd be getting different answers probably, and we would synthesize the plan a little different. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Mr. Dudash.
Yes, sir.
For residential, it states moderate density housing. Define that, please.
Well, so townhomes are roughly 8 to 12 units to an acre. I'm thinking it's probably something like that. You know, apartments, flats, you know, you can push 30 units to the acre. But, I mean, if they're concentrated in an area, I mean, generally you want 8 acres or so of that. If they're concentrated in an area, you broadly can adjust that density on a bigger level. So I think you're somewhere in there. If we want it to be real and walkable and viable, then I think you're somewhere in between there.
Is there an example in town of something that you're describing where individuals would come, work, live? Would Sandhills fit that bill? That may be a question for
probably.
Mr. Rubel,
I think I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've been there, but from what I've seen, I think there's probably a small component of that. I'm not sure. I could do a little research, some more research on that.
My last question for you is, I'm looking at your proposed land use, and you've got,
Master plan?
Yeah, this one.
Right.
Yeah. And you've got a large allocation of space dedicated to recreation. I believe the last time we spoke, it was approximately 33 acres, or about 1/3 of the 100 acres. My question is, why would you take your best commercial property and dedicate it to what I assume to be public recreation?
Well, let me try to remember about a year ago why we did that. I think there was a connection as well to the upper area. I can't remember the neighborhoods that were sort of all around that. And we felt like, actually, you're saying it's the best commercial. I'm not sure I'm going to argue that as much as
Has the most frontage on the main road.
Yeah, it's got the most frontage, but you're closer to 77 and the old University Club, I forget the name. Cobblestone, yeah, there too. So, it seemed like relative to the rest of this property, it's actually on the edge, and the concentration of what I was describing as the walkable mixed-use components were closer to the main road, 77 and the other intersections, so.
But one could argue that a recreational facility is a destination, correct? Like if it's a mile down the road and people are playing baseball or football there, they're going to get there whether it's an extra mile or not. Okay.
We actually looked at other options. I mean, we looked at maybe trying to get it, in other areas as well, but the last version we came up with was this one.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Dudash.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it very much, and I hope the town keeps caring like they have been. So, thank you.
Brings us to item 4 tonight, discussion item, the 2020-2030 Comprehensive Plan dash Transportation Element Goals. Mr. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the most valuable things about the joint meeting is an opportunity to talk about the town's long-term planning goals. Since we've just completed the comprehensive plan, Mayor Franklin and Chairman Gorge recommended we include in this meeting a discussion of one of the plan elements goals. So tonight's an opportunity to look at the transportation goals and how the town can work together to meet those goals. I'll turn it over to Mr. Gorge.
To be a bit quiet spoken, but thank you for that introduction, Mr. Williamson. The Planning Commission is very proud of achieving the comprehensive plan. It is a very comprehensive document and covers all of the issues and elements that were raised by our residents and the community at large when we carried out the survey almost a year ago. The presentation that we've just heard from the ULI is very apposite, is very relevant to the next stage, and the next stage is the hardest and the most critical, and that's the implementation of all the various proposals and projects that are being identified. So there are 2 or 3 things I just wanted to throw out tonight for discussion. First of all, I think as a matter of course, every time we have one of these joint meetings, we should be talking about some aspect of the comprehensive plan. Whether it's just an individual element or an aspect of that element or the plan at large, I think we have a responsibility to discuss that so that our community knows that we're still committed to the plan and that we're making progress. So that's the first thing that I would suggest or recommend that we do. The second thing is, I think we've got a very keen group of commissioners on the Planning Commission who are anxious to make progress, but we need some kind of prioritization, clearly, to be able to address the most important and beneficial aspects of the plan. And we did touch on this at our last joint meeting. But what I think would be helpful is if we could set up some kind of joint working party, subcommittee, task force, whatever we want to call it, that allows a member or 2 of council and members of the Planning Commission to work together to gather all the relevant information that's available, to try and come up with a proposal or a strategy for implementing that particular item. I think the risk is, if we do not do something like that, we will always be talking about what we are going to do and not what we are doing. So that's how I think we can probably keep this momentum going. And I did just want to hand out this information here. We can make it available very easy to the general public. Erica, could you pass that out? As I think everybody knows, the Richland County publishes every month an updated report on all of the Richland Penny projects. It's not easy to get that report, and it's always at least a month out of date, just because of the admin that's involved in preparing the report. But what I've provided for you this evening are the two most crucial pages for us, which is the Blythewood road improvements. And I think that's something, again, that we should be reviewing on a regular basis so that our residents are aware of what's going on. I don't mean to beat this to death, but this has been going on since 2012. 10 years we've been waiting for the funds from the Richland Penny to actually materialize into something of real benefit to the town. So that document at least provides some indication of where they have got to in this extraordinarily complex plan that they took on board when they adopted the referendum for a 1% sales tax. So that really is the crux of what I wanted to talk about this evening. And very quickly just reiterate where we are with the Blythewood Road improvements, which really goes hand in glove with what we heard tonight from ULI. The Blythewood Road, whether we like it or not, needs to be improved, needs to be widened, and that will happen for sure, but it's already taken 10 years to get this far, and I have no idea how much longer it's going to take. We still have a couple of right-of-way issues to address, but more crucially, I think, is the water main from Winsborough has got to be moved from under the road, or what would be under the road. They have to move it to allow them to have access to that water main for maintenance purposes. So that's a huge project, and needless to say, there was pushback from Winsborough that they didn't want to do that. But they have now agreed, probably from pressure from SCDOT or someone, but they've agreed in principle that they will do that. So that huge hurdle is now overcome, and we'll see what happens next. My personal view is that the real priority for us is the Creech connector and improving McNulty. There are less hindrances in the sense that there are fewer landowners involved in getting the right-of-way approved for the Creech connector. So I think that is well advanced, and according to this report, they're pretty optimistic of getting the design stage complete within the near future, whatever that might mean. But just to reiterate, if we can use the reports, establish relationships, which we have through Mr. McKendrick and the TPAC, establish a strong relationship with the transportation director and his staff and engineers, we can facilitate the whole process of getting these road improvements put in place, which everybody appreciates and values as an important step for Blythewood. Every single day, anyone that lives in Blythewood comes up against the issues of congestion and traffic lines and all the frustration that causes, and we have to do some pretty serious things to make that better. And all the while, land developers are producing more and more homes. We're expanding, the population of Blythewood, which means more roads, which means more congestion. So we've got to figure out a way of making that more efficient sooner rather than later. But that later is becoming later and later and later. So I certainly don't want to take up everybody's time going through the plan again. What I want to do is fix on some priorities. I think transportation ought to be the first, because that is actually making some progress. And if we can pull together this working party, I believe we can make more progress and we can keep our residents better informed on where we are.
Brilliant idea. Absolutely support that. I think you and I need to talk after this via email. You get 2 planning commissioners volunteer that want to take on the project. I'll get 2 council members. They could all 4 under your leadership if you choose to lead the team.
Be happy to.
And then Councilman McKendrick already has relationships being built now with the Penny Tax Committee. And I agree with what you're saying. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. We haven't been squeaking as much as we should have. And I think it's a brilliant idea, a good initiative, and we certainly will do that. Set up regular meetings with the individuals who run the road improvement program. The 4 priorities, just for the audience: widen and improve McNulty Street from Main Street to Blythewood Road. The second priority was widen and extend and improve Creech Road, push it all the way through the hotels or to come out by the high school football stadium on Main Street. Priority 3, widen and improve the Blythewood Road from I-77 to Main Street. And then the last one, widen Blythewood Road going west all the way to Fulmer Road. Many of you know the intersection of Blythewood and Fulmer Road right there on the west side. That property is owned by Risson County School District 2. It will be a future elementary school. We spoke to Mr. Will Anderson, one of the chief operating officers over there, on April 21st. The council went after our budget sessions to meet with him about specifically preserving the historical Blythewood Elementary School gymnasium and all the history it brings to our town. But while we were there, we took the opportunity to ask him about what about the new high school on Grover Wilson and what about the new elementary school. It's fundamental that we get the road widened before you put a new school out there, or you're just going to compound this ever-increasing traffic in and around our area. So we're making inroads, but I think a formal committee that speaks for the town is a brilliant idea, and we will certainly do that. Any comments, council members?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Gorge, Commissioner Gorge, Councilman, you were my predecessor on TPAC, and certainly appreciate all the inroads you made on behalf of Blythewood. And I think it goes without saying, serving on TPAC is about like watching paint dry on a wall. It's a little frustrating watching just how very slow the wheels of government move in doing what has already been funded, and being collected. I can, between the 2 of us, the committee the mayor's talking about forming, we can provide the monthly report to council and the planning commission on a monthly basis. I've been on TPAC right at a year, and the percentages have moved from 87 to 89% of right-of-way acquisition in a year. And we're down to 2. We're down to the short rows on the major project. But it is painfully slow, as you are aware. So I concur. Having more voices behind our agenda is better than
a lone voice as a representative on TPAC, which really is just an arm of the people that really do the work, kind of a sounding board. So definitely concur. Look forward to what could come out of that.
Any other comments, council members? Planning commissioners, any comments? I think we'll have a plan and we will put it in motion. Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Move to part 5 tonight, open citizen comments. I know some folks want to speak when the planning commission opens up, so just be patient. Any other citizen wishing to speak to council? Okay, hearing none. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the town council portion of tonight's meeting? Probably a motion second to adjourn the town council special call meeting for tonight. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it, we're adjourned. Thank you. Sure, you want to take a brief recess, and then folks can leave if you want to leave. Thank you all for coming tonight. Appreciate it. We'll take a 5-minute recess.
included. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's 5 minutes before 7. I'll call to order this meeting of the Planning Commission on May the 2nd. We start. Mr. Wilson, can you confirm notification and posting of the agenda for this meeting?
Yes, was posted.
The next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. I need a motion from the commissioners. Second. A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The agenda is approved. Item C is approval of the minutes of our previous meeting. Is there any discussion about the minutes which are in your packet? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. There is no actual discussion item tonight, so we can move straight into item 3, which is the action item, which is a zoning request. Mr. Williamson, can you head that up for us, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is the zoning map amendment 2022-03-MA R8, 1 and 2 family residential district to R20 low density residential district. This amendment would rezone the entire Oakhurst neighborhood, which includes all the properties listed on your agenda, which is all the residential properties in the Oakhurst neighborhood. So if there's any question, I won't read every single tax map number, but I do want to explain the background. On March 28th, Town Council, at the request of the majority of property owners in the Oakhurst neighborhood, directed staff to initiate a map amendment to change the zoning for all the properties in the neighborhood from R8, 1 and 2 family district, to R20, low density residential. The Oakhurst neighborhood was established approximately 20 years ago with the R8 zoning district. The minimum lot size for this zoning district is 8,000 square feet. However, all the 49 lots exceed the 20,000 square feet, and all but 5 lots have single-family dwellings, and the remaining lots are undeveloped. In order to ensure that the remaining lots are developed with a similar character as the existing neighborhood, the majority of the property owners have requested that the zoning district of the entire neighborhood be changed from R8 to R20, which has a minimum lot size requirement of 20,000 square feet.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson. Before we get into any further discussion, we do have 2 people that wish to speak on this. Ms. Cynthia Schull, would you like to step forward?
Comments, I was just going to...
Could you just state your name and address?
Cynthia Schull, 6 Crossroads Court. I also own one of the undeveloped lots, 5 Crossroads Court, and I just wanted to be here if you had any questions. I don't know who else signed up. Who would you have?
Mr. Bill Shives has also signed up to speak.
Okay. So if you had any questions, I'm happy to address them. I've been the Oakhurst treasurer for over 4 years, going on my 4th year.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Ms. Schull? You're good. Mr. Shives? Very good. No problem. Okay. So we've heard the request for a zoning map amendment. Is there any questions or clarification needed by the commissioners? Erica, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to see, can we pull up the neighborhood on the aerial.
The map, yeah.
Yeah, for plot sizes, yeah. So take a look.
Oh, it's just a static display. Are you trying to look at where we would measure the lots?
I think while we're talking about dimensions, I think it would be fair of us to be able to look at it while we're having the discussion, rather than just using figures on a piece of paper.
Well, while we're thinking about that, I think my only comment would be that this is entirely in line with the vision of the town of Blythewood. Some years ago, 4 years ago maybe, we made a decision as a council, or council made a decision, I should say, more correctly, to limit the amount of high density housing in Blythewood, because we were just growing at an alarming rate, and our infrastructure was not really able to keep up with that. So we tried to establish a threshold of R20 for all future developments. Mr. Williamson?
Yes, I just want to add on that note. The comprehensive plan, just the future land use map that's in the land use element of the comprehensive plan, it did just go with the current zoning. So if this were to get final approval, we would need to come back and amend the comprehensive plan to reflect that, because the comprehensive plan shows it as residential flex, which is that's smaller, that R8 1 and 2 family residential. So it needs to be, if this goes through, then we would come back and amend the future land use map of the comprehensive plan.
Thank you for that clarification. Any more questions or comments by the Planning Commission? I think this is really a fairly straightforward request. There may be some sort of technicalities from the zoning map point of view, but I think we're generally in favor with the proposal. So I would entertain a motion to approve the zoning request. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
You just make a motion that you're making a recommendation to council.
It will be a recommendation to council. Yes, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to make this zoning change recommendation to council. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. And that's our decision, that we will make that recommendation to council.
So this will, just for the public's knowledge, there will be a public hearing, and there will be 2 readings at Town Council, and the first one will likely be May 23rd in front of Town Council, same time, Monday, 6 o'clock.
Thank you again, Mr. Williamson. Okay. So that really concludes all of our actionable items. We do have Mr. Franklin has requested opportunity under open citizens' comments. Mr. Franklin, would you like to step forward? Or no, you don't need to. You've got your own
manifesto here. I just have the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Many of you read an article in The Voice recently, and I just want to take an opportunity, since normally I'm not given the opportunity to speak to the press before they go to print. Just want to make sure we set the record straight here, and you hear from me my assessment of what's going on in our town. Freedom of the press is absolutely vital to preserving democracy, and freedom to speak out openly without fear of reprisal is a protected right of the press, as it is for elected officials. Sometimes elected representatives are pressured by the press to take certain actions, and when they don't conform, they often face negative or even false and unfair narratives. Such is the state of our times. We see it at all levels of government. That's the nature of holding public office, and those who enter into that arena must have thick skin and be able to withstand harsh criticism and even lies sometimes from the press. All press resources, regardless of where you find them, include certain biases, but when the press becomes actively complicit in an alleged corruption and/or conspiracy to defraud, they must be held accountable. And as your mayor, that's why I'm offering this statement today. But what could Ms. Ball's motive be? Why would she openly spread false information to the Blythewood citizenry without confirming facts? Recall that 1 year ago, in May of 2021, I issued a statement describing to you a purported three-way conspiracy between Mr. Brock, Ms. Ball, and MPA Strategies. Driven by greed and personal ambition, Mr. Brock concocted a scheme to set up a future run for mayor. The voice under Ms. Ball would provide glowing press coverage for Mr. Brock while disparaging anyone else who would run for mayor, either by peddling misinformation, falsehoods, or simply omitting any good news about the town's administration. Have you not seen that recently in The Voice? If elected mayor, Brock would use MPA Strategies to assist in his campaign of self-promotion while possibly increasing its salary. Brock would direct all town marketing business solely to The Voice and Barbara Ball, and all three would thrive off the Blythewood taxpayers' backs, according to Mr. Brock's plan. All this evidence is currently found in emails and testimony, which are part of the lawsuit currently underway. No wonder they want it stopped for the evidence not to come out. How convenient for them to suddenly be the victims now. In fact, an incredible display of self-unawareness, Mr. Brock just a few months ago also admitted to this scheme. He told a sitting councilman emphatically that he will be the next mayor, and he will immediately rehire MPA Strategies, and they will select Barbara Ball's The Voice as the sole source of advertising and public announcements for this town. Those are his words, not my opinion. Ms. Ball has also voiced her anger at town officials about not using her exclusively as our only news source. When we disagreed, due to the fact that her paper sometimes profits 3 times as much as the other local paper, she became very defensive. She also stated the town only needs to advertise in one paper, and that could save money, and that paper should be her paper. I've always strived as mayor to hire local businesses and ensure all monies are fairly spread around, thereby stimulating all businesses as equally as possible. Perhaps revenge is another motive here. You decide. This evidence is part of the lawsuit, which they so desperately want to discredit and stop. So in a desperate and coordinated attempt to remain relevant in this case, on this past Thursday, April 28th, Ms. Ball published an editorial stating, quote, "The issue tracks back to Franklin's angst after council voted 3-2 on February 22nd to hire MPA Strategies over the Blythewood Chamber of Commerce," in paragraph 4. At the same time, Mr. Brock released a social media post accusing me of having, quote, "sour grapes," unquote, about hiring MPA Strategies over the Blythewood Chamber of Commerce. There was never an official vote to hire MPA Strategies outright, as The Voice would have you believe. When the council discussed this matter, and it's on film, I, as mayor, simply asked each member one at a time what their preference was. 3 members said they preferred MPA Strategies, and 2 members, including myself, preferred the Chamber of Commerce, a local organization. Realizing there was no vote and needing an official decision, I asked for a vote to allow me as mayor and the staff to begin contract negotiations with MPA Strategies. I voted yes to that motion. So how can that be sour grapes or angst? I was executing the prevailing opinion of the council. Does that sound like the actions of a disgruntled person to you? I think you, the citizens, should respond back to Brock about his deceit and false innuendo. Demand that he remove his refuted opinion. Hold him accountable for his actions and words. I have already asked him personally to resign from this council. So the truth is, I voted to enter into contract with MPA Strategies. I then approved the contract after consulting with council. I praised MPA Strategies after they secured a grant on behalf of the town and was featured on the front page of The Voice with a nice picture of the council and Ms. Hunter. My approval and praise of Ms. Hunter is documented in the papers and it's on record. Hardly angst, if you ask me. Again, editorials are presented as personal opinion, and Ms. Ball is entitled to her opinion, but not her own facts. And what she writes here should be taken solely as her personal opinion. I will now present the counter-argument to many of these inaccuracies. In paragraphs 1 and 2, she attacks Mr. Black. Mr. Black is the outside attorney for Blythewood and the MPA Strategies case. He represents the town of Blythewood and its interests. He does not represent me as mayor. He does not represent individual council members. He can fight his own battles in this public space. I will not presume to comment for him or his law firm here tonight. Ms. Ball continues in paragraph 3, quote, "It was the latest salvo by Mr. Franklin's team to spread false allegations against The Voice," unquote. Whose team is she referring to? The last time I checked, the team was this entire council and all the employees of our town. I've spread no false allegations about Ms. Ball or her paper. Everything I have said is factual, provable. I can prove all my statements with evidence. And I plan just to do that for you and the general public as soon as this judge rules on this case. So her playing the victim card here is ludicrous. Paragraph 5 continues. Franklin, quote, "failed to submit responsive documents to MPA as required by law," unquote. And she presumes that was the start of all this lawsuit. And that the responsibility for the entire cost borne by these lawsuits is mine alone, is what she said. I have addressed this comment multiple times, and I'll do so again so you citizens can understand what happened. And this is publicly available information in the court. MPA submitted a FOIA for the mayor's emails, communications, etc. after the contract was signed. Only days later, the Country Chronicle submitted a FOIA for all council members' communications. MPA and Ashley Hunter then said they wanted not only the mayor's, but all of what the Country Chronicle demanded as well. In order to save money, the town hired a data forensics expert to copy all electronic information from our devices at one time. 3 council members immediately brought in their personal phones, their personal laptops, and their government-issued iPad to be copied. That was former Councilman Larry Griffin, Mayor Pro Tem Eddie Ballman, and me, the mayor. We complied immediately because we had and still have nothing to hide. While waiting for the other 2 councilmen to comply and bring in their data, Brock submitted paper printouts and heavily redacted documents which were not responsive to the information requested, and his failure to respond still leaves the town open to more lawsuits from the requesters. Lawyers from both sides agreed to wait until all evidence was collected before next actions were taken. Suddenly, MPA changed their minds and filed a lawsuit. But see, you didn't read that in The Voice, did you? Ms. Ball continues her rant and says Mr. Franklin insisted on having the council member data pulled, exported, and separated at a great cost. That is also false. I have never asked for anyone's data. I simply followed the directives of our town attorneys. The town attorneys asked for this data in order to represent and defend the town of Blythewood. I have never directed any of these forensics procedures. I didn't even know they existed. However, since then I have learned it is commonplace in a court of law to compel this data collection. FOIAs can include terms like, quote, all electronic communications, unquote, or, quote, data in its native form. So if you send an email, then they expect to have a copy of the email, not a paper copy that you redact the information from. Also, isn't it curious to note that as we sit here tonight, Councilman Brock still has not complied fully with that FOIA request. He has omitted certain emails and correspondence in his incomplete paper copy submissions. Why do you think he's doing that? And why has Ms. Ball not employed her award-winning aggressive journalism and told you, the citizens of Blythewood, that Brock has not supplied all his emails or his phone data? Is it because Mr. Brock will be her champion if he becomes mayor? Is it possibly because she's included in the emails and texts, some of which we have, that show her working with Ashley Hunter on what Ms. Hunter and her attorney want to be said and what not to be said in Ms. Ball's articles, possibly creating their own evidence? This evidence is currently pending trial. I'll let you decide, but apparently Ms. Ball continues to cover for Mr. Brock by keeping you all in the dark. Ask where the town's counterclaim is published on her website, the one she promised to put up as soon as it was available. She was quick to report about MPA suing the town, but she never told you about the town's solid counterclaim. Ask her where the FOIA information is that shows Brock and Ms. Hunter discussing attorney-client privilege information during an active executive session over text messages. Ms. Ball is in possession of all this information, but she continues to hide it from you. Why didn't she use her crack investigatory skills to uncover a councilman's completely unethical actions? It will all be released very soon. Ms. Ball says I have made, quote, unfounded allegations, unquote, about MPA. Another falsehood. All I have ever stated about MPA is documented, factual, and true, and it may be found in my public statements and in all correspondence currently before the court. In her editorial, Ms. Ball continues her screed and scorn, but alas, she slips. She does not deny her involvement in the conspiracy to profit with Brock. She said it is not her who is discrediting me. Instead, I am discrediting myself. Wow, what a stretch that is. If any citizen wants a balanced argument, you call me directly. My cell number is 803-800-3922. Call me, I'll return your call, or I'll come visit you on your front porch if you wish to discuss this matter and clear up these falsehoods. You deserve the truth. Do not allow gossip and fiction to cloud your judgment. The facts will be laid out before you all very soon. I will summarize Ms. Ball's editorial by calling it projection-laden, a desperate plea to the citizens of Blythewood. She's hitched her wagon to Mr. Brock in an ill-advised plot to use the weight of the press to promote her accomplices and in return reap rewards. After being discovered, the lies and hit pieces continue now, but now the net they cast is broadening. At first they tried to paint me as a corrupt figure, but that failed miserably. There were no facts. Now they have set their sights on our town's legal team. Please be patient because the judge is about to rule on some important issues that you will be notified of. Fortunately, many citizens have caught on to their scheme, and many more will as well when the court disclosures are presented to you and you yourselves can see the truth. Not fantasies designed for personal profit, personal gain, and even business and political survival. The corrupt union is now made clear. Brock begins his own, quote, defund the lawyers, unquote, campaign, voting against all legal funding for the town in this matter, and he tries to have the legal team disbanded. He sides with MPA, stating the town's countersuit is frivolous, even though you, the citizens, haven't seen it widely published. Mr. Brock continues to coordinate and conspire with those who would do us harm, all the while trying to deflect and disparage the town staff and me at every turn. This is what a desperate person does when faced with public scrutiny into unethical, immoral, and illegal actions. But as I stated before, the court awaits. Ms. Ball ends her bullying mantra after deliciously stating she will not be bullied into submission. What projection that is. The bullying press finds itself being held accountable by the public for continuing to issue misleading comments like those described above. And Ms. Ball wants to intimate she's the one being bullied. For the record, she's never asked me or the staff to confirm, deny, or add comments to any recent article pertaining to MPA strategies. Sounds like a lack of journalistic ethics and basic reporting standards from an award-winning newspaper to me. A simple email asking a question would prevent untruths from being printed, don't you think? Unless there's a motive behind these falsehoods. Just within the last several months, Ms. Ball threatened a council member with a front-page negative story on him for taking an action she did not personally agree with. Come on, man. Ms. Ball concludes her editorial by saying, quote, one thing is as certain as the heavens, this newspaper is not going to sell its soul for $29,400. But apparently it will sell its soul to a corrupt politician who will soon face the courts to account for his legal activities and plots, and possibly pull her down with him. A true pity indeed. It's a crying shame that conniving folks have brought our little town this low. Rest assured, my fellow citizens, the vice is tightening around them, and while they continue desperate pleas for attention, their wrongdoing is fully documented and will be revealed to the public at large very soon, including Councilmember Brock's previously withheld electronic information. Stay tuned for a press conference after the judge's ruling on some matters, while I will bring further light on this travesty to disinfect it. Thank you for hearing me out. I will not stop until we have justice, and always reach out to me if something doesn't seem right, and I will shoot straight and tell you what I know and what I don't know. But do not read this garbage and think it's fact, because I've just disproven 5 or 6 items in an editorial that could have been resolved by picking up the phone and calling somebody. In your service, signed Brian S. Franklin, Mayor, Town of Blythewood. Thank you all for your attention. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
That concludes our business for this evening. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Town Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Ed. Appreciate it.